Hi and welcome back to Pick Up the Pieces. I'm Stacy and tonight we're in the pickup kitchen making up some Christmas gifts. So my mom stayed with us for a little while back in October, I think it was October, and she was not feeling well. She had been in the hospital, and when she was here with us, I had given her some homemade cranberry juice that I made. She asked for the holidays for a couple of batches of that for herself as a gift, and so I'm happy to do that. She also asked for some of my homemade strawberry jam, so I thought, you know what, why don't I show you guys how to do that, plus a couple more gifts. So today we're going to make homemade cranberry juice, we're going to make strawberry jam, we're also going to make Coquito, which is an alcoholic beverage, which is great to give as a gift or nice to keep for yourself. And then we are also going to make homemade hot chocolate mix, which is something that my kids absolutely love, and I'm going to use it this year as a gift for all of our kids. Just send them home with like a jar of hot cocoa mix. So first we are going to get our strawberry jam going. I have 3 pounds of sliced strawberries. I bought these frozen because, as we know, it's now December and fresh strawberries are not really a thing, at least where I live in New York. And so I got some beautiful sliced strawberries frozen, and I'm going to use these to make the jam. If it was summertime and I could get fresh, I would certainly get fresh, but this is what we have, so we're going to use these. So I'm going to get these going in a Dutch oven, and I just want to soften them a little bit so that I can kind of like mash them down, and then I'll add some more ingredients to them. While these are then cooking, I will get our cranberry juice going. So I'm going to put these in my Dutch oven and then just get this cooking. Over sort of a medium heat. So cranberry juice, like I said, is something that my mom loved that I made last year. We had a bunch of jars of it still, and it is shelf stable. Now this is considered more of a rebel canning recipe, so if you're like a canning purist, this is maybe not something you're going to be comfortable making, but I did some research online, made it, we drank it and loved it, and absolutely nothing happened to us as far as like it not being safe for us to consume. So we're comfortable making this and consuming this. But this recipe is considered more of a rebel canning because it really isn't, it doesn't follow like the standard canning rules, and I'll show you why in a second. So what we have here are some quart jars. So I'm going to try my best to make at least 8 quarts of the juice. Now, I'll probably give some of it to my parents, and then I'll keep the rest of it for us, and we will use it and enjoy it. Now, it couldn't be easier to make your own cranberry juice. The only thing is that once you actually go through all of the steps today to make it, you have to wait 4 to 6 weeks to drink it. That's the only thing that maybe isn't the most fun about this recipe, but it makes the most amazing cranberry juice, which also makes a great mixer for your holiday drinks. If you get this going early in December or late November, you can have this ready for your New Year's cocktails. If not, it's fine. You can make it and have it in the new year. So we are going to fill each jar with 1.5 to 1 3/4 cup of fresh cranberries. We're going to use 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of sugar, top it off with boiling water, put on our 2-piece lids, and then put in the water bath canner for 25 minutes, and that's it. Then the cranberries and the water and the sugar will steep for 4 to 6 weeks in the jar on your shelf, and in 4 to 6 weeks they're ready. I suggest dating the top of your jar so you know how long it's been in there, and I'm going to show you how we do this. So I just took a bunch of cranberries here, and I rinsed them off. So I'll add 1 cup to each jar, and then I'll go back and add 1/2 cup to each jar. And then I've got my 1/2 cup measure. And when cranberries were on sale around Thanksgiving time, I just bought like a bunch of cranberries. And now I'm going to do my best to use them all. And whatever I don't end up using to make cranberry juice, then I will just freeze. and use them for something else. And somehow I ended up with like the perfect amount of cranberries for these 8 jars. I've got a couple cranberries left, so I'm just gonna toss them in. It's okay if there's a couple extra in each jar. It's not gonna hurt anything. Now, the last time I made this, I used a 1/4 cup of sugar in each jar. And to me, I felt like that was perfect. We like the tartness of cranberry juice. We don't want them too sweet, so that is what I'm also going to do this year. If you like your cranberry juice sweeter, you could certainly add some extra sugar. And then I have a pot of boiling water behind me ready because we're going to top these with boiling water and then get them right in our canner. I've got our water bath canner ready to go. There's boiling water in it. And I've also got my Presto Electronic pressure canner going for my jam because the juice takes 25 minutes to process and then the jam takes 10 minutes. And so I don't want to be in the kitchen all night. So I am going to let both of my canners work for me. So 1/4 cup of sugar. Now, I've seen some recipes online that say you should add some lemon juice to this. I think that you can. I think you add like a teaspoon of the lemon juice to each jar. And I suppose that might make it like considered more of a safer canning recipe. But again, when I made this last year, I did not add any lemon juice. And this juice was absolutely delicious. And I'm not worried about doing this because we did it once already and it was great. So, and I didn't have any issue with like any of the fruit in the jar molding, the seals, like the jars sealed properly when I opened the jars. They weren't like bubbly or fermented in any way. So certainly you want to make sure when you open up your jars that you're not experiencing any of that, but as long as you're not, then you're good to go. So all I have to do now is ladle or pour my boiling water on the top of these. So I am going to get some of my stuff out of the way. And what I used to make this is 1 whole bag of these cranberries and then a small bag as well. I think it was like a 16-ounce bag. So this is a 2-pound bag. And so I used a 2-pound bag and then a 16-ounce bag. And that was what filled my 8 jars. So if you're going to try this at home, that is the quantity that you will need. I'm just going to check my strawberries here. And I'm just getting these strawberries. They're still a little bit frozen, so I'm getting them like a little softer by warming them up, and then I'm going to mash them a little bit. The recipe basically just said to mash up your strawberries so that you have 5 cups of strawberries, but you needed 3 pounds of strawberries to make this recipe. So I have my 3 pounds of strawberries and I measured them, and now I'm just going to mash them in the pan, and then I'll go with the next steps of the jam as soon as I've got these juice jars cooking for me. Okay, so I don't feel comfortable picking up this pot, even though it's got like the little pour spouts on each side and pouring. It is very full, so I'm going to ladle until I feel like I've used up enough of the water to where I feel comfortable pouring it. I really don't want to burn myself with boiling water today, so I'm just going to be cautious, but I suppose I could probably get this done a little quicker if I was a little, more willing to take a risk, I guess. So I just filled it. I think these said to fill within a 1/2 inch from the top. So I believe that's, there we go, a little bit better. I don't really measure these things like exactly when I make jams and pickles and things, but I just make sure to leave a little bit of room at the top. And it's totally normal for your cranberries to float to the top. Once they can and process, they will turn into cranberry juice. When you take these out of your canner, you may actually see that the water is still clear. Like I said, it takes 4 to 6 weeks for this to actually turn into cranberry juice in your cupboard. Okay, so now that goes a little faster, but like I said, when the pan was full, I didn't really want to do that. So I'm going to just finish filling these with my boiling water, and then we're going to get these in the water bath canner. Now, in the meantime, my strawberries have cooked down quite a bit, and I've been able to mash them nicely, so they are good to go. Okay, and then I've got just 2 more jars. And if I have to add just a teensy bit more water, I can, but I just kind of make sure everybody's got enough. And naturally, I'm just making a mess and getting water everywhere, but my counters will be nice and clean, I'll tell you that. There we go. All right, so about 1/2 inch. So I think I might need a little bit more water in a couple of these jars, because it says you want to be about 1/2 inch from the top, so and like I said, it's okay if your cranberries float a little bit. That is not a problem. Okay. So I'm going to put this water back in my canning pot. And I want my canning pot to come to a boil, because when these go in, this is boiling water, so you want your boiling water in these jars to be cool with the boiling water in your canning jar. So I am just going to make sure those are up and running, and then we'll go to the strawberry jam. So just fingertip tight, you're going to put your lids and rings on. And just be careful because your jars are warm. And you don't want to over tighten these, just fingertip tight is just fine. I'm going to show you how we get these into the canning pot as soon as it comes back to a boil. My water bath canner is ready to go, so I'm going to lower these jars in. Now, I know that the rack inside of here is going to be very hot, so use these oven mitts. And then my jars are very hot, but I don't know if you guys can see this, but they're so beautiful. Like, these cranberries look so pretty, and they start to sort of like the color sort of starts to seep into the water, and it's just really pretty. So I have 8 of these, and I think that this canner will fit. I'm thinking we're doing 4 at a time, because I don't want to cram 5 in there and then it's like too full. So we're going to go with 4 for 25 minutes and then 4 for another 25 minutes, and that's how we're going to do it. And then I'm just going to lower these in. Now these need to be covered with the boiling water by about 1 inch or so. So I'm just going to add a little bit more water. So I think that's enough water now, and I'm just going to wait for that to come back to a boil before I put the lid back on. And then that is when I will start my 25-minute timer, is when it comes to a boil and I put the lid on. And in the meantime, we're going to get these strawberries going now. And so we're going to give this a couple more minutes to get back to a boil, and I'm going to show you how to make strawberry jam. So we've got our 3 pounds of strawberries here, and they are mashed up, and we're going to add 4 tablespoons of lemon juice to this. And we're going to put our pectin in. So this is a whole packet of pectin, and pectin is what helps your jam like solidify and gel up for you. And so we're going to whisk that into our strawberries and our lemon juice. And then we're going to get this to come to a full rolling boil, which means that when it is boiling, a full rolling boil means that when you go to stir it, like with your whisk or with your wooden spoon, that it doesn't stop boiling. So it's very important that the strawberries be very hot and very aggressively boiling before you add sugar. So we have 3 pounds of the strawberries, we have 7 cups of sugar, and the recipe said this will make 8 jars of jam, but I have 10 jars processing or ready to process for me, just in case it ends up making a little bit more than 8 jars. I usually end up with like a little bit more than it says, so I don't want to take the risk that, you know, I have all this hot jam ready to go and I don't have enough jars ready. So I got 10 jars ready, and they're in my pressure canner, and I will water bath can them in the pressure canner when this is ready. So we just need this now to come to a boil. So it's sort of a race. Like, we'll see if this one boils before our juice boils, but we are getting both going. And when we're done with these, we will make our Coquito and our hot chocolate mix. So as you can see, our strawberries now have come to a nice boil. And we want a rolling boil. They're not quite at, but they are boiling. And we want that pectin to activate, and it will help when we add the sugar for this to all gel up into jam consistency. You don't want runny jam. So see, I stirred it and it stopped boiling. So it is not ready for us to add the sugar yet, because that is not a full rolling boil. Okay, so this is our full rolling boil that we were looking for. When I stir it with the spoon here, it doesn't take for about a second or two for it to get back to a bubble. So now we add our 7 cups of sugar all at once. And when you are doing a canning recipe, you want to have your ingredients all pre-measured and ready to go. That is definitely the way to do it, because you do not want to be trying to scoop out 7 cups of sugar while your strawberries or your other fruits or ingredients or whatever are ready to go. You don't want to like miss that window where, you know, everything is ready and you're not. So it's very important to have like your sugar pre-measured so that you are good to go when it starts to bubble on you. Now, you want to be careful at this step because your fruit mixture here is very hot. It is scalding hot. It could burn you. You want to be very, very careful here. Kids can certainly help with this as long as they are careful, but you don't want them to get splashed with any of your jam or jelly. And you want to be careful that you don't burn yourself because it gets very, very hot. The addition of the sugar to the fruit really helps it to get super hot, probably hotter than boiling. So just be very careful. So at this point, we're just waiting for our jam to come back to a full rolling boil, and it needs to stay there for 1 minute. And when we stir it, it doesn't stop boiling, and that is what we want. So we need this basically to come back to the way it was boiling before we added the sugar. And so we are just going to stir it so it doesn't burn, and we're going to give it that time to do that. And I've got this strawberry jam over a pretty high heat. I would say it's more medium high now. And our jelly jars are hot and ready to go in the canner. And I am just turning down the heat a little bit. I don't know if you can hear and see what's going on over here, but the cranberry juice is bubbling away, and the it's boiling so hard that it's sort of maybe some of that water is trying to escape. So I just turned it down. Our jam is starting to come back to a boil. See how on the edges here it's starting to really boil. And so it smells wonderful. I love making jam. I prefer making jam over jelly because jelly is just really like the juice of the fruit turned into then jelly, but jam has like bits of fruit in it, which I just prefer. But this is absolutely delicious on, you know, bagels or toast. You could even spoon it over some ice cream. It'd be great. But we just love jam in this house. And so now you may see that there's a little bit of foam here on the top of the jam mixture. The recipe says to, you know, skim off the foam before you put this in jars. If there isn't a lot of foam, I just leave it. I've heard that you can put a little pat of butter in your jam at the end to like get the foam to go away, but personally, like the foam doesn't bother me, so I often will just leave it. But it's up to you. The recipe does say to skim it off, but it's not going to hurt your jelly or your jam if you leave it in. And I switched to a spatula. I was using a wooden spoon at first, but I switched to a spatula so I could kind of scrape these sides down a little bit. I just don't want any of my fruit or sugar sticking anywhere. So I feel like the spatula is doing a better job of that. So we're just going to make sure this comes to a boil that cannot be disturbed by stirring. And it looks like we're there, so I'm going to time 1 minute. And this is how long this needs to boil for. And when it is done boiling for 1 minute, we're going to turn the heat off and we're going to start putting it in jars and get it in the canner. It's time to can up our strawberry jam. And so I'm using a ladle here and my canning funnel. And I'm going to try to get, you know, bits of solid fruit and liquid in each jar. And that way you kind of get like even consistency in your jelly or your jam. So when I scoop up my jam, I'm just being, you know, aware of the fact that I'm scooping up some liquid and some solid fruit. And I can always go back and top these off a little bit. I believe these go to within about a ½ an inch or so from the top. And like I said, I'm not really like so precise about how I exactly fill the jars. I just sort of try to make sure that they're all evenly filled, and I don't overfill them. Like I don't want them completely filled to the top because I don't want them to not seal properly, but I don't like, I have a tool that came with my canning set, and you can use it to measure to see if it's within a certain distance from the top of the jar, but I can honestly say I don't think I've ever used it because I just don't worry about it. I just fill up my jars and I put them in my canner, and I've really never had a problem with that. So I've got 10 jars ready here because my recipe said it makes 8 jars, and I am pretty sure I'm going to end up with more than that. So my pressure canner will hold 10 jelly jars here for me, and it will process them for me all at one time, which I love. And so we'll see if we get 10. And if there is just a tiny bit left, I will just take a jar and just put it in the fridge. If there's like just 1 jar's worth or maybe 2 jars worth, I'll just put it in a jar, put it in my fridge, and we'll eat it up. But I'm just, you know, thinking I'll get more than 8 jars. Like I said, every time I make jam or jelly or salsa or something, I always end up with more than it says. So anyway, that's just how it always seems to work out for me. And I'm certainly not complaining. So we're just going to fill up this last jar here. I'm going to top off a couple of these because a couple of them look like they're a little bit short. And you can tell that you've done a good job with your jam or jelly if it starts to gel up just as it's sitting in the jar as you're filling them. And I can tell as I'm topping them off that what's in the jar has already started to gel up. So that means we got the right combination, like the right amount of fruit, the right amount of pectin, the right amount of sugar. It means we got it to the right temperature. So I'm really happy with this. Now, if you get distracted and you end up leaving a bunch of your jelly or your jam in your pot for a little while and you forget about it and come back to it later, you might find a gelled up mess. So you definitely don't want to forget about your jam or your jelly. So now I'm going to get my lids on my jars, and then I'm going to get them here into my Presto pressure canner. Like I said, I don't really worry so much about this foam that comes to the top. I'm really just, I don't know, I'm not concerned about it. I don't think it affects the flavor of the jelly or the jam. I think that it, you know, it maybe doesn't look as beautiful, but it doesn't bother me, so I just leave it. But I am just wiping off these. See, you don't want this bit of jam or jelly that's on the rim here is going to prevent your lid from sealing. So this is definitely an important step you want to take. And you want to get all that, you know, if you spilled a little, if you're a little messy, you want to get that off your jar, because if you don't, it may not seal properly. So we are going to get this wiped, and be careful because your jars are hot, very hot. And then my pressure canner here is on the water bath setting, and it will do all the work for me. It will process these for 10 minutes. There will be like a little cooling time, and it'll beep at me when it's ready. And then these can just come out and hang on the counter. So as I put my lids on, I will get these in here. And you want to be careful because these jars are boiling hot. So and when you are using the pressure canner on the water bath setting, you do need to make sure your jars are covered. So I am going to make sure that I have some hot water, and I'll get that in a moment so that I can put this on top for my jars, because like I said, they do have to be completely covered to process properly. I don't know if you guys can see this. I'm going to try to do this without burning myself, but if you look at this jelly, you can already see, even though it's really hot, it's starting to solidify. So that is how you know that you did it right, and it's going to come out beautifully because it's already solidifying on me. Okay, so I've got my 10 jars in there, and I will be right back. Our first batch of cranberry juice is done, so I will carefully get these up and out of here, and they are going to be very hot, so we will use our lifters to get them out. And as I said before, your cranberry juice is not going to be bright red and ready to drink for about 4 to 6 weeks, so do not be surprised when you take it out of your pot that it is still clear, because really now the sugar and the cranberries will infuse into the water and steep almost like a tea in a way over the next 4 to 6 weeks. So it is not ready to drink yet, but it should start to, like, these jars should seal for us. So now this is the second batch, last 4 going in, and we will top these off with a little more water. So I just added a little bit more water to make sure that my jars are covered, and as soon as this comes back to a rolling boil, I'll cover it in, again, 25 minutes. But as you can see, our cranberries are now out of the pot, and they look so nice. Like, as you can see, the juice sort of starts to seep out of the berries, and the sugar is infusing, and it's going to be delicious when it's ready. So we're working on this, and we've got our strawberry jam processing, and now we're going to move on to the next thing. So as you can see, our strawberry jam is all set. It came out of my Presto pressure canner. I did a water bath setting on that, and it processed for 10 minutes, and my jars are hanging out and cooling. And this is how much we had left in the bottom of that pot. It's probably an 11th jar, but I wasn't going to just process one final jar all by itself, so I'll just put this in this jar in our fridge with a plastic lid, and this we'll use over the next, week or two. And so the strawberry jam is all done. And our second batch of our cranberry juice is processing, so that's got about 25 more minutes to go. And while that is going, we're gonna make our homemade Coquito. So Coquito was introduced to me by a couple of friends of mine. It is traditionally like a holiday drink. There is alcohol in it, so you are not giving this to your children. But this is an amazing holiday treat, and it's a great gift as well. So this should sit in your fridge for a couple of days, maybe even like a week or two before you actually serve it, because you kind of want all the flavors to like blend together. So this isn't one of those things where you just mix it up and drink it right away. I guess you could, but it's better if it kind of sits and hangs out in your fridge for a while. So what we're going to do is add a can of evaporated milk to our blender. And then you also want a can of coconut milk. So there's a bunch of the solid, delicious coconut cream at the top of this, but then underneath is more like the liquid coconut milk. So you just have to be careful when this comes out of the jar, because it does separate, and sort of your coconut solids will end up usually at the top of your jar, and then you'll have some liquid underneath. And I didn't realize that the first time I opened one of these jars. And then when I went to pour it, I got like a big, huge plop everywhere and made a big mess. So beware of that. And then I'm going to add my sweetened condensed milk. So 3 kinds of milk go into this. And the first step is going to be to blend all this in the blender and mix it together. And then we're going to add some alcohol to this. Now, the kinds of alcohol that you add to it, it's completely up to you. I've found that we like coconut rum, white rum, and a little bit of brandy in ours. And my cranberry juice is just being very noisy back there, so I'm just making sure that doesn't boil over, but making sure it's still boiling so that it processes. So I'm just getting the last of that sweetened condensed milk out of the jar. So our 3 milks go in here, and then this gets blended. As soon as this is blended, we're then going to add our alcohol and some cinnamon. Now, you can add whole cinnamon sticks to each bottle when you put this like in a bottle to give as a gift, or you can just add a little bit of cinnamon. People can actually serve this to themselves and add a little extra cinnamon on the top if they want. This is great, just kind of in a glass with some ice. You can certainly drink it as like shots, but Coquito is amazing. And so we're going to blend this up. Okay, so to this mixture then we're going to add our alcohol and our cinnamon. Now really the amount of cinnamon that you add to this is up to you. I think that, and I will link this recipe for you in the comments along with all the other recipes, but this says 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. So I have my measuring spoons, and I will stick with what the recipe says. If I remember correctly, the last time I made this, it was perfect with the 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. So going to add that now. So 1. And like I said, you can put whole cinnamon sticks in the jars if you wish. Now I went on Amazon and I just bought some like little individual glass bottles. I guess they're sort of like a glass water bottle in a way, but they're really cute. And I think they're really festive because they have like a silver lid and they're gonna look really nice with this. So we'll keep some of this probably for ourselves, but we'll also maybe give some to neighbors or friends. I think that they'll really like this. So we're going to add now a cup of light rum. We like Cruzan rum, so we're gonna add 1 cup of this. And I know I said I've measured vanilla with my heart, but alcohol I do measure with the measuring cup. because you don't want unbalanced beverage. And then we're going to add a cup of this coconut rum. And this is just some Malibu rum. Now, if you didn't want to add the coconut rum, you don't have to. You could just do all white rum. But I think the coconut rum and the white rum together, it's just a nice mixture. Now, keep in mind, it's going to make multiple servings. This is not like a pitcher that you would just put out and like let people pour huge servings of, because it is potent. Oh, and we're going to add brandy. We need a 1/4 cup of brandy. So this is just a E&J VSOP brandy, nothing fancy. I'm not a big brandy drinker. The only thing I think I've ever done with this brandy is make Coquito. So, and just a 1/4 cup of that goes in there. There we go. And now we're going to blend this up. Okay, now, like I said, this is going to be put into jars. You could just use like regular mason jars if you want, but I bought some really pretty jars on Amazon, or bottles, I guess, and we're going to use these. And I'll put a little label on them. I'll find some like cute little like Christmas gift stickers or something like that, and I'll just label these. And then people will know what it is in the bottle that they're getting. So all we now need to do is just pour our Coquito in these jars, and then it's going to sit in the fridge, and then it's going to sit there for at least a week, maybe 5 days, and then we will start to give it as gifts or start to sample it ourselves. I also think this might be nice added to coffee, like add a little bit to coffee. It might be tasty, but this makes just a fabulous holiday treat. And like I said, I've made this before and it was a hit, but please be careful and don't let your children get the Coquito. So I noticed that some of the coconut milk is sort of coming up to the top of the surface, and I, kind of tried it a little bit. It's not, it's still really creamy and nice, but it's just not completely fully blending in, and I'm not going to worry about it. I suppose that you could strain it if your coconut milk does that. But I am not going to worry about it. I am going to pour my Coquito now into my bottles and hopefully not overflow this like I did my cranberry juice. But this makes an amazing gift. And I don't know how many bottles I'm going to end up with. I think these are 18-ounce bottles. So we'll see. We'll see how many we end up with. And I could always make another batch if I wanted to, or if we decide to. Or if we decide that we have more people that we want to give gifts to. Okay, and so I have sort of, I don't know if you can see this, but this is like some solid coconut milk stuff. And I'm just going to leave that in the blender. I'm not going to pour that into a bottle. I'm going to leave that where it is. But we have 3 nice big bottles of Coquito and then some for us to try. If I decide I want to make like another batch, I can always, basically fill up these additional 2 bottles plus this and then have a little bit more for us to try. But for right now, we're going to stick with this. And I'm going to put these in the fridge. And we're going to let them chill for a couple of days and label them. And then these are going to make great gifts for the neighbors. And like I said, we've made this multiple times, and sometimes we just kind of sip on it on Christmas morning as the kids are opening up gifts, and it's absolutely delicious. So I do hope you try this recipe. Like I said, I will link it below. And now we're going to make homemade hot cocoa mix. We have made it to our 4th and final holiday gift idea. Now, I love this hot cocoa mix so much. I've made this for years and years. My kids absolutely love it. The recipe that I have, I will include in the description. It says that you take this mix, you mix it up, and then you take like 3 to 4 heaping teaspoons of it, and you put it in a glass with hot water, and you mix it up and drink it. Now, I have always put this cocoa mix into warm milk. I've never put it into water. You could absolutely do water, but I just want to make sure I mention that before I forget. Now, the other thing you can do with this hot cocoa mix is you can either mix in like mini marshmallows to it, or you can like leave them on the side. And if you're giving this as a gift, you can even like give somebody like a bag of marshmallows to go with it. We're not huge marshmallow people here. We like them in our Rice Krispie treats, but maybe not so much in our hot cocoa. So I don't do it, but it is absolutely something that you can do. You could even maybe make some homemade marshmallows and include them as a lovely treat with this hot cocoa mix, but that is totally up to you. So our cranberry juice is done. We've got 8 quarts of that cooling. We have 10 half pints plus a little extra of our strawberry jam that is cooling. We've got 3 big 18-ounce bottles of our Coquito in the fridge. Now, we did take a little taste of it. I guess the best way I can describe it is eggnog that isn't gross. Actually, that was my husband's description of it, was eggnog that's not gross. There's really not a lot of eggnog type ingredients in the Coquito, but it's really tasty. And the thing is, we took a little taste of it tonight. It's not ready yet. It needs to sit in the fridge for a while. And all the flavors were sort of blend together. Like right now it tastes good, but it really needs to sit in the fridge for like 5 to 7 days or so before you try it, because that is when it will taste the best. And again, there's, milk in it, so that's why it needs to be in the fridge. But trust me on this, you need to kind of let it hang for a while before you actually dig in or pour yourself a glass anyway. So I'm going to make 2 big batches of hot cocoa mix. And the reason that I'm doing that is we're going to give our kids some cocoa mix as like, part of their stocking. And also we like to have some on hand, and it lasts forever and it's delicious. And so let me show you how to make it. So I'm doing 2 batches, so I'm going to do it in 2 different bowls. And we do need our food processor for this, and I'll show you why in a minute. Now, this is instant non-fat dry milk, so powdered milk, and this is sort of the base of it. And we are going to use 2 cups of this per batch. And I got this at Walmart. This is probably the most expensive ingredient in the recipe. I think this bag was about $20, but once you have this on hand, you can make a ton of your cocoa mix, and it makes a great gift. And then honestly, you can use this powdered milk like as powdered milk if you need it. And this powdered milk is trying to choke me, I think. So 2 cups of powdered milk into each bowl. And we've got like a cloud of powdered milk. And then half a cup of coffee creamer. So this is just like non-dairy coffee creamer like you buy at the store. And you need a half a cup of this per batch. So I'm just going to pour half a cup-ish. And it's okay if it's a little bit more. You don't have to be like seriously super precise with this. And that's fine. So half a cup of that. And that adds some nice creaminess to the recipe. Okay, you need a cup of baking cocoa, so unsweetened baking cocoa. And each recipe gets a cup of this. Now, you can sift this in. And so like you can use the sifter and you can pour your ingredients in and sift it. The easier thing to do is just whisk it. So put all your ingredients in a big bowl, take a whisk and mix it up with a whisk, and or a wooden spoon or something like that, and everything will mix just fine. So it's up to you whether you want to actually like sift it or whether you just want to, like mix it with a whisk. So we need a full cup of the cocoa. And so if you buy like a really, really high quality cocoa, your hot chocolate is going to be phenomenal. This is an Aldi brand cocoa, and I feel like it's very comparable to Hershey's. You could really go all out and buy just like the most high-end fabulous cocoa powder that you can get your hands on. You could use like Ghirardelli or something super fancy if you want to, but just know that, if you use kind of cheap cocoa powder, then your cocoa is not going to be as good as if you use like a good quality. But like I said, like a Hershey's cocoa or something like that is perfectly fine. But you can really go all out and use like, really high-end cocoa powder if you'd like. So we're going to finish off this jar of cocoa powder. but I have another one. And I suppose I'm probably a little more particular about measuring out this ingredient above all the others. You don't want to not have enough cocoa powder because it is hot cocoa after all. Okay, so a cup. So it's 2 cups of powdered milk, half a cup of coffee creamer, cup of cocoa, and then you need 2.5 cups of powdered sugar. That's a lot of powdered sugar, I know, but that is what you need. So I have a lot of powdered sugar on hand. So that's 1 cup. That's 2 cups, and then we need, so about 2.5. So this is a 1/4 cup measure. So that's 1/4. A little bit more, so that's about 2.5 cups of powdered sugar, and I have more of that. So I have more powdered sugar. I'm just drying my scissors here because I washed them, and I want to cut open this powdered sugar. If you ever have like a bag of like something powdery where it's like a plastic bag, if you sort of smack it down on your counter a little bit, kind of flick at the top here, you'll be able to get some of the ingredients away from the top so that when you cut it open, you just don't make like a huge mess everywhere. And as you cut it open, you'll notice like the ingredients go down back into the bag, so didn't make a huge mess. Now this entire bag of powdered sugar will fit in my little container, and that's why I kept this container a long time ago, because I know it holds 1 bag of powdered sugar perfectly. So I'm just going to refill my container and then get out 2.5 cups of powdered sugar for my second batch. Okay, so now that has been refilled, and I am just going to get, so that's 1/4 cup, 1/2 cup, that's 1 cup, and another cup of powdered sugar. So now we need a teaspoon of salt. That little bit of salt with the sweet really elevates the flavor, and so you don't want to skip this. This is really essential to the flavor of the hot chocolate. And then also we need 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. Now, like I've said in previous videos, I don't always love using cornstarch. I prefer potato starch or even maybe like a tapioca starch, but cornstarch does work best in this recipe, so I will use it if I need to. So that's 1 teaspoon. Two teaspoons. And then 1 teaspoon. 2 teaspoons. And I think the cornstarch honestly does something very nice with the texture of this, so don't skip that either. Okay, so that is it. Now, these get mixed together, and then we are going to put a cup of semi-sweet or milk chocolate chips in the recipe. But the way we're going to do that is we're going to mix this up, and I'll show you how to do that with a whisk. And then we're going to add the chocolate chips to the blender with a cup or 2 of the mix and grind the chocolate chips into the mix. Like, you want the chocolate chips kind of almost completely ground up. And what that does is when you go to make your hot chocolate, so like I suggested using milk for this, so you heat up, 10, 12 ounces of milk, and then you, I take like scoops. I use like a scoop for this. So what I did was I went on Amazon and I found these cute little spoons. And so what I would do if I was making this is I would take probably 2 or 3 scoops like that. I would put them in the cup. I know the recipe says use like 3 to 4 heaping teaspoons. So that's about a tablespoon and a little for a serving. But I tend to kind of almost double up on that. I would say that I probably use 2 big tablespoons of the cocoa mix in my cup of cocoa. That's how we like it. That tastes the best to us. But when you make this, you can like, make it and experiment and see like how cocoa-y do you like it? How much mix do you want to add to your milk? You could certainly add this like to almond milk or something like that if you want to, but there is dairy, like the milk, the powdered milk is dairy. And I've never really seen like a powdered milk alternative in the store that isn't dairy. But if you wanted to, you could certainly do like almond milk or oat milk or something like that, and then put this in that. That would be just fine. So this batch is mixed nicely. I'm going to do the same to the other batch. And then I have a cup of chocolate chips ready to go in each one, and we're going to use our food processor here to grind that up. And then I'm going to show you how I package up my hot chocolate so that I can give it as gifts. Because, it's not super expensive or time consuming to make this, but it doesn't hurt to put it in like a really cute package when you give it to somebody. And I think homemade gifts or gifts that you make and give to somebody that are thoughtful means so much more than something you can buy at a store. So, if you're having a rough year and there's people that you want to give gifts to, and you just can't really afford to go to the store and buy something very expensive for them, consider making up a big batch of something like this and giving this to them. And I don't think that they would be disappointed. So, all right, we're going to add a little bit, I would say about a cup, something like a cup of the mix to the food processor. And then we're going to add our cup of chocolate chips. These are Ghirardelli chocolate chips. They're very good quality chocolate chips, which I think makes the cocoa even better. So we're going to blend these up. Now, I just want to check the consistency. So I can still see that my chocolate chips are pretty chunky. So I'm going to blend this even more. Like you want the chocolate chips almost like, I would say like to be like sprinkles, to be like shredded up. And be careful when you open your food processor, you don't want to inhale a huge cloud of cocoa dust. Okay, and so when I feel it now, like I can still feel some little pebble-sized chunks of chocolate chips, so I'm just going to let it go a little bit more. And the reason you want these chocolate chips to be so fine is that you want them to melt really quickly into your hot chocolate. You don't want them to like lump up at the bottom of your cup. So that is why you want them to be sort of ground up. Okay, so this is good. It's not as easy to identify the hunks of the chocolate chips anymore. So now I'm going to put this back into the bowl it came from. Now, the cool thing about this recipe is if you want to use a mixture of like white chocolate chips, dark chocolate chips, milk chocolate chips, you could totally do that. If you want to use just all white chocolate chips, you could totally do that. You can customize this cocoa recipe in any way that you like, and your cocoa will come out creamy and delicious. I guarantee it. You really just can't mess this up. Like I said, you just kind of want to get the quantities accurate or correct, whatever. And you want to use good quality cocoa powder, and you want to use good quality chocolate chips. So another cup of chocolate chips for our second batch. Okay, and so, yep, with this batch, I can tell that my chocolate chips are ground up really well. And like I said, you kind of want them like the consistency of like sprinkles that you would use for like cupcakes or something. You don't want to just put whole chocolate chips right in your cup of cocoa because it's going to lump up on you and not melt in. But if they're ground up, then it's going to be perfect. And you just use some of like the 1 cup or the little scoop of the mix to help grind up those cocoa or chocolate chips so that they, you know, grind up nicely and mix in. All right, so now that that is all set, I'm going to get this out of the way. And I'm just going to mix this all evenly together so that we have a nice, completely mixed mixture for our cocoa. Now, like I said, when I make this, I'll just scoop it out of my jar or my container, and I will put it in a cup of hot milk. And then you can top it, like I said, with marshmallows if you like them, or whipped cream, something like that. But this is outstanding cocoa. So we're going to give this year as gifts to people. And because we're going to give it as gifts, I want to package it up in a pretty way. And so I have some really nice jars that I've had in the house, and I'm going to use this one for one of our kids. And then I have like this really cute jar with like a lid that I'm going to use for one of the other kids. Now, if you don't have jars like that sitting around and you don't want to buy them, you can just use like a wide mouth jelly jar, jam jar, whatever, ball jar. And like I said, these little spoons are super cute. And if it's a wide mouth jar, then it's easy to scoop your cocoa mix out. And so if you were going to fill up one of these, then I would just say, take your measuring cup and fill this up with your cocoa mix. And then all you have to do is just kind of dust off the top and then put on your lid. Now, what I did was I cut a little bit of fabric into a square. So there's just some Christmas fabric that I had from the craft store. And if you put that on top of your jar and then tighten your ring down, then now you have a cute little jar with some fabric. And this makes a great gift, and it's super decorative and cute. If people want to leave the fabric on, they can. If they don't, they can take it off. And then I have like a little piece of yarn here that's really pretty, and I'm going to just tie this around my little spoon. And then you can tie this like to your jar or around your jar. You could even like loop this on the ring before you put it on, or you can just kind of loop this all around. I think I would probably need a little bit longer of a piece of string to be able to go all the way around the jar, but let's see. Oh no, I think we're okay. We did it. So here I can do this, maybe like a little bow. And then here you've got your cute little spoon attached to your little jar. You can attach a little note to the top that says use 2 heaping spoonfuls of your mix in your 8 to 10 ounces of hot milk or 12 ounces of hot milk and enjoy hot cocoa. And this makes a really cute gift. So I'm going to package up some more of this hot cocoa, and I will show you what that looks like when I get back. So here we are at the end of our night of work. I got 2 big containers full of cocoa mix for our kids. These are going to the 2 of the boys. And then these smaller ones will be for like maybe neighbors or whoever. We've got our finished strawberry jam. We have our Coquito, which I pulled out of the fridge for now, but still needs to hang there for a while. Before you serve it, you do want to give it a shake to mix it really well. And then this is our cranberry juice. Now, again, a reminder, this cranberry juice isn't ready to drink yet. It's got to hang out in your cupboard for about 4 to 6 weeks, but it's going to be amazing. But these are just some lovely gifts that I think are really affordable and easy to make. And I think that they would maybe make people in your life very happy and very appreciative. And so if this year is sort of a homemade Christmas for you or a homemade holiday season, I hope that you try one of these recipes or maybe all of them and let me know how they came out. So I want to thank you for joining me in the Pickup Kitchen. I do appreciate that each and every one of you are here and you are enjoying my videos. And so again, I wanted to thank you. If you haven't already, please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Good night.